I found out I was pregnant in a Target bathroom at 2 in the afternoon on a Wednesday, and the first thing I did was buy a pack of gum so the cashier wouldn't know I'd been crying. Before we go any further, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from right now. My name is Kendra, and I've spent the last 6 months of my life perfecting the art of invisible panic. You know that feeling when you're drowning, but you're smiling because you don't want anyone to ask if you're okay? That was me, every single day. I was 20 years old, a junior at Richardson University, studying biology on a scholarship that covered tuition but not much else, and I was 3 months pregnant with absolutely no idea how I was going to survive the next 6. My best friend Maya didn't know. My mom didn't know. Nobody knew except me and the stick I'd shoved to the bottom of a trash can 2 states away. Maya and I had been inseparable since freshman orientation, the kind of friendship where you finish each other's sentences and share clothing sizes and midnight breakdowns. She was pre-med too, brilliant and driven, and she came from the kind of family that had a lake house and matching Christmas pajamas. I came from the kind of family that chose between electricity and groceries some months. I loved her, I really did. But there are things you don't tell people who've never had to choose between eating and paying rent. Not because they're cruel, but because they can't understand the weight of those choices, the shame that comes with them. So when I started feeling sick in the mornings, I told her it was stress. When I started wearing baggier clothes, I said I was bloating. When I stopped going to parties, I blamed my coursework. She believed every word because that's what best friends do. They trust you. The father was a guy named Marcus from my chemistry study group. Smart, funny, gone the second I told him. Blocked my number before I'd even finished the sentence. I spent 2 weeks texting paragraphs into the void before I accepted that I was doing this alone. The anger came later. First came the fear, then the shame, then the exhausting daily performance of being fine. I was working 2 jobs. Mornings at the university library, restocking books and checking out students who didn't make eye contact. Evenings at a diner called Rosie's, serving pancakes to people who tipped in loose change. My feet ached constantly. My back was starting to hurt. I was exhausted in a way that sleep couldn't fix. But I kept showing up because the alternative was dropping out. And dropping out meant disappointing every teacher who'd ever believed in me. Every guidance counselor who'd written a recommendation letter, my mother who worked doubles so I could be the first person in our family to get a degree. The baby wasn't even here yet, and I already felt like I was failing it. It was a Thursday night when everything changed. I'd just finished my shift at Rosie's, and my manager had sent me home with leftover pie that nobody wanted. Apple. It smelled too sweet and made my stomach turn, but I took it anyway because free food was free food. I walked the 14 blocks back to campus because I couldn't afford the bus, and by the time I reached the library where I'd left my backpack, my feet felt like they were full of broken glass. The library was technically closed, but I had keys because of my morning job. I let myself in through the side entrance, planning to grab my stuff and head back to my dorm. That's when I heard the voices. Low and tense, coming from the private study rooms on the 2nd floor. I should have left, should have minded my business, but one of the voices was Maya's, and she sounded scared. I climbed the stairs quietly, my heartbeat suddenly loud in my ears. The door to study room C was cracked open just enough for me to see inside. Maya was there, and so was someone I'd never seen before. A woman, late 40s, maybe, expensively dressed in that effortless way that screams money without trying. Silk blouse, tailored pants, jewelry that caught the dim library light. "I don't understand what you want from me," Maya was saying, and her voice had an edge I'd never heard before. Not scared, defensive. "You want me to tell me the truth," the woman said, calmly. "But I've been very patient, but my patience has limits. I've told you everything I know. You're lying." The word hung in the air like a slap. I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing, My backpack was in the room next to theirs. There was no way to get it without them seeing me. I was trapped. Mrs. Castellano, I swear, I don't know anything about your son's research. I'm just a student. I don't even know your son. Castellano. The name hit me like cold water. Everyone at Richardson knew the Castellanos. They donated millions to the university. There was a whole wing of the science building named after them. And their son, Julian Castellano, was a graduate student in the engineering department, some kind of genius who'd supposedly developed technology that half the tech companies in Silicon Valley were trying to buy. I'd never met him, but I'd heard the rumors. Reclusive, brilliant, rich beyond comprehension. My son doesn't trust easily, Mrs. Castellano said, and now her voice was softer, almost sad. But for some reason, he trusted someone in your study group. Someone stole his prototypes. Someone sold his research to a competitor. And I will find out who it was.
There was a long silence. I held my breath so hard my chest hurt. Then Maya said something that made my blood run cold. "Have you talked to Kendra?" Everything inside me went still. The woman, Mrs. Castellano, made a thoughtful sound. "Kendra, your roommate." "My best friend," Maya corrected, but her voice was different now. "Careful. She's in the same chemistry class. She works in this library. She has access to everything." I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Maya was throwing me under the bus to save herself, and she was doing it so smoothly, so easily, like she'd been planning it all along. The betrayal felt physical, like something inside me was tearing. "Tell me about her," Mrs. Castellano said. "She's struggling financially. She works multiple jobs. She's been acting strange lately, secretive. I've asked if she's okay, and she keeps brushing me off." Every word was technically true, but the way Maya said them made me sound guilty, desperate, capable of anything. "I'll look into her," Mrs. Castellano said. "Thank you, Maya. You've been very helpful." I didn't wait to hear more. I moved as quietly as I could, down the stairs, out the side door, into the October night that suddenly felt too cold. My mind was racing. My best friend had just accused me of corporate espionage to a woman whose family could destroy my entire life with a single phone call. And the worst part? I couldn't even defend myself without exposing all the other secrets I'd been keeping. The pregnancy, the jobs, the crushing weight of trying to survive while everyone assumed I was fine. I walked back to my dorm in a daze. My roommate wasn't there. I sat on my bed in the dark and tried to figure out what to do. I could confront Maya, but then she'd know I'd been eavesdropping. I could go to the administration, and say what? That I'd overheard a private conversation while illegally accessing the library after hours? I had no proof of anything except that my best friend was willing to sacrifice me to save her own skin. The baby kicked for the first time that night. Just a tiny flutter, barely noticeable, but it was there, real. A reminder that I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I put my hand on my stomach and made a promise I didn't know if I could keep. I would figure this out. I would protect us both. Somehow. I didn't sleep that night, and when morning came, I went to class like nothing had happened, because that's what I'd gotten good at, pretending everything was fine. But Mrs. Castellano was watching me now. I could feel it, and I had no idea what she was going to do next. The surveillance started small, so small I almost convinced myself I was being paranoid. A black car parked across from the diner for 3 nights in a row. A woman in sunglasses sitting in the library, not reading, just watching. Then my financial aid office called me in for a random audit of my scholarship paperwork, something they'd never done before, something that made my hands shake so badly I could barely sign the forms. Maya acted normal. That was the worst part. She texted me memes, invited me to study sessions, asked if I wanted to split a pizza. I played along because I didn't know what else to do. Every smile I gave her felt like swallowing glass, but I smiled anyway. I needed to understand what she was really doing, why she'd sold me out so easily. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe I'd misheard something in that study room. But deep down, I knew the truth. People do desperate things when they're cornered. I understood that better than anyone. It was a Monday when I met Julian Castellano for the first time. I was shelving books in the engineering section, trying to ignore the constant ache in my lower back, when someone cleared their throat behind me. I turned, and there he was. Tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair that looked like he'd been running his hands through it all day. His eyes were an unsettling shade of gray, sharp and assessing. He wore jeans and a plain black sweater.
Nothing that screamed money, but something about the way he carried himself told you he'd never worried about a bill in his life. "You're Kendra," he said. "Not a question." My heart started pounding. "Do I know you?" "Julian Castellano." He extended his hand. I didn't take it. After a moment, he lowered it, something like amusement flickering across his face. "I know my mother has been investigating you. I wanted to apologize for that. It's excessive." "Investigating me for what?" "Someone stole my research. My mother thinks that someone with access to the engineering lab and the library systems. Your name came up." He said it so casually, like he was talking about the weather. "But I looked into you myself. You're pre-med. You have a 4.0 GPA. You work 2 jobs. You have no connections to any tech companies and no reason to risk your scholarship for corporate espionage. So I convinced my mother to back off." I stared at him. "You convinced her?" He can be persuasive when he needs to be. Relief flooded through me so intensely I had to grip the bookshelf to stay steady. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." His expression shifted, became more serious. "I need your help. Whoever stole my research is someone I trusted, someone close to me. My mother thinks it's someone from my inner circle, and she's not wrong, but I can't figure out who it is." He paused, studying my face. "Your friend Maya. How well do you know her?"
The question felt like a trap. "She's my best friend." That's not what I asked. I looked away, uncomfortable under his gaze. "Why are you asking me this?" "Because my mother told me what Maya said about you in that study room." He stepped closer, and I caught the faint smell of expensive cologne. "She threw you under the bus pretty quickly. That's not what best friends do. So either she genuinely thinks you're capable of theft, or she's deflecting. Which do you think it is?" I wanted to defend her, wanted to believe there was some explanation that made sense, but the words wouldn't come. Julian watched me struggle, and something in his expression softened. "You don't have to answer that," he said quietly. "But I need to know who took my research before it ruins me. If you hear anything, see anything, I'd appreciate it if you'd let me know." He pulled out a business card and held it out to me. When I hesitated, he added, "I know you don't have any reason to trust me, but I think we might be able to help each other." I took the card. Heavy cardstock, simple design. Just his name and a phone number. "What makes you think I need help?" "Everyone needs help." He said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Some of us are just better at pretending we don't." He left before I could respond, and I stood there in the engineering section for a long time, turning his card over in my fingers. I should have thrown it away, should have stayed out of whatever mess the Castellanos were tangled up in. But that night, when I got home and found an eviction notice taped to my dorm room door because I'd been late on my housing payment, I looked at that card and wondered if maybe, just maybe, Julian Castellano was right. Maybe we could help each other. The next day, I started paying attention, really paying attention, to Maya, to the people she talked to the places she went. It felt like betrayal, spying on my best friend, but she'd done it to me first. Fair was fair. I noticed things I'd somehow missed before. The way she always had new clothes despite complaining about student loans. The expensive coffee she bought every morning. The weekend trip to New York she'd mentioned casually like it was nothing. Maya came from money, sure, but college students from wealthy families don't usually have unlimited funds. Her parents believed in teaching responsibility, making her budget her allowance. So where was this extra money coming from? I followed her one night. I'm not proud of it, but I did it anyway. She went to a cafe downtown, met a man in a suit who looked like he was in his 40s. They talked for an hour. She handed him a flash drive. He handed her an envelope. Even from across the street, I could tell it was cash. My stomach turned. This was really happening. My best friend was the thief, and she'd tried to pin it on me. I took photos on my phone. Not great quality, but good enough. Then I called Julian Castellano from a number I'd been avoiding for a week. He answered on the first ring. "Kendra, I know who stole your research." There was a pause. "Meet me. Anywhere you want. I'll come alone." We met at a park near campus, late enough that it was empty, but public enough that I felt safe. I showed him the photos, watched his face as he scrolled through them. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes went cold and sharp. "Do you know who the man is?" I asked. "Robert Finch, VP of Acquisitions at Prometheus Tech, my biggest competitor." He handed my phone back. "This is exactly what I needed. Thank you."
What are you going to do? Handle it. He looked at me for a long moment. Why did you help me? You could have just ignored all of this? I could have lied, could have said something noble about justice or truth, but I was tired of lying. Because she tried to destroy me to save herself, and because I need money. The admission felt like ripping off a bandage. I'm 3 months pregnant, the father's gone, I can barely eat food. My scholarship doesn't cover housing, and I just got an eviction notice. So yeah, I helped you because I'm hoping you can help me. If that makes me selfish, fine, I'm selfish. I expected judgment, maybe pity. Instead, Julian just nodded like I'd said something completely reasonable. That doesn't make you selfish. It makes you human. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. I just sent you $50,000. That should cover housing, medical expenses, whatever you need for the next year. Consider it payment for the information. I stared at him. You're not serious. Check your bank account. I did. The money was there. $50,000, just like that. I started shaking. I can't accept this. You can and you will. You earned it. He stood, brushed off his jeans. And Kendra, what Maya did to you was unforgivable, but don't let it make you hard. You're going to be a mother. Your kid's going to need you to stay soft enough to love them properly. He smiled, just a little. Trust me, I grew up with parents who forgot how to do that. It's not something you come back from easily. He walked away, and I sat on that park bench until the sun came up, crying for reasons I couldn't fully name. Relief, exhaustion, gratitude, fear. All of it mixed together until I couldn't tell one emotion from another. The money changed everything overnight. I paid my housing debt, bought actual groceries, made a doctor's appointment for real prenatal care. For the first time in months, I could breathe without the constant weight of panic pressing down on my chest. But Maya still didn't know I knew. And Julian's revenge, whatever it was going to be, was just beginning. The consequences for Maya came swiftly and without mercy. Julian didn't involve the police, didn't make a public scene. He did something much more effective. He had his lawyers contact the university with evidence of academic dishonesty and theft of intellectual property. Within 72 hours, Maya was expelled, her scholarship revoked, her acceptance to medical school rescinded. I watched it happen from a distance, watched her whole future collapse like a house of cards, and I felt nothing. That scared me more than anything. The absence of feeling. I'd loved this girl like a sister, and now I watched her life fall apart and all I felt was cold satisfaction? Maybe Julian was wrong. Maybe I was already getting hard. Maya called me the day she found out. I was in my newly affordable dorm room eating real food for the first time in weeks when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but some morbid part of me needed to hear her voice, needed to know if she'd finally tell me the truth. Kendra, something terrible happened. She was crying, full, gasping sobs that once would have broken my heart. I've been expelled. They're saying I stole research from Julian Castellano, but I didn't. I swear I didn't. Someone's setting me up. That's awful, I said, and my voice sounded distant even to me. Who would do something like that? I don't know. Everything's gone. Medical school, my scholarship, everything. My parents are furious. They've cut me off completely. I don't know what to do. She took a shuddering breath. Can I come over? I need my best friend right now, please? I should have said no, should have ended the friendship cleanly, let her face the consequences of her choices without dragging it out. But I needed her to know, needed her to understand that I wasn't the naive girl she'd thought she could sacrifice. Yeah, I said, come over. She arrived 20 minutes later, eyes swollen, mascara streaked down her face. She hugged me immediately, and I let her, feeling her shake against me. We sat on my bed, the same bed where we'd stayed up countless nights studying, gossiping, planning futures that would never happen now. I'm scared, she whispered. I don't know how to fix this. Maybe you can't fix it. Maybe some things, once they're broken, stay broken. She pulled back to look at me. What do you mean? I was there, Maya. The words came out steady, calm. I heard everything you said to Mrs. Castellano. I heard you throw me under the bus to save yourself. I heard you suggest I was the thief. Her color drained from her face. Kendra, no, that's not what happened. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You were scared and you pointed them at me instead. Your best friend, the person who would have done anything for you. I felt the baby kick, a reminder of exactly how much I had to lose. Except it didn't work, did it? Because Julian actually looked into me and realized I had no motive. And then someone took photos of you selling his research to Robert Finch. Funny how that worked out. Her mouth opened, closed. You, she breathed. You took those photos. You turned me in. I gave Julian the truth. That's all. What he did with it was his choice. I was desperate. Her voice rose, cracking with emotion. Do you have any idea what it's like living in your shadow? Perfect Kendra with her perfect grades and her perfect scholarship. Everyone loves you. Every professor, every advisor. Meanwhile, I'm busting my ass just to keep up, spending my parents' money on tutors and study programs, and it's still not enough. I'm still not enough. So you became a thief. I needed the money, not for clothes or trips or stupid things, for tutoring, for extra classes, for programs that might actually help me compete with people like you who make it look so easy. Tears were streaming down her face now. And then Finch approached me with this offer, just some research files. Julian wouldn't even miss them. He has backups of everything. It was supposed to be harmless. But it wasn't harmless. It cost Julian months of work. It could have cost me everything when you tried to frame me. And you did it anyway. I'm sorry. She grabbed my hands, desperate. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was awful. But please, you have to help me. Tell them it was a mistake. Tell Julian to drop the charges.
You're the only person he might listen to. Please, Kendra, our friendship has to mean something. I pulled my hands away. It did mean something, past tense. I stood up, moved to the door, opened it. You need to leave. Kendra, leave. Now. She left, still crying, and I closed the door behind her. Then I sat on the floor and cried too. Because even though she'd betrayed me, even though she deserved what happened, it still hurt to lose her. Grief doesn't care about justice. It just hurts. Julian texted me that night. Are you okay? No, I wrote back, but I will be. That's the right answer. We started talking after that, not about Maya or theft or revenge, just talking. He'd swing by the library during my shifts, bring me food from restaurants I couldn't pronounce, ask about my day like he actually cared about the answer. He told me about his work, explained his research in terms I could understand, showed me prototypes of devices that would change entire industries. His passion for it was infectious. For someone born with every advantage, he worked like he had everything to prove. Why do you care so much? I asked him one night. We were sitting in his car outside the diner, splitting fries I'd gotten at my employee discount. You're already rich. You could coast on your family's money forever. Why work this hard? Because money you earn means something. Money you inherit is just luck. My parents built an empire. I don't want to just maintain it. I want to build something of my own, something that matters. And does it matter what you're creating? It will. He looked at me with those sharp gray eyes. Medical devices, diagnostic tools that can detect diseases years before symptoms show up. Technology that could save millions of lives if I can get it right. He paused. What about you? Why pre-med? My aunt died of breast cancer when I was 12. Caught it too late, couldn't afford proper treatment. The memory still ached. I remember thinking if she'd just had access to better doctors, earlier detection, maybe she'd still be here. So I decided I'd be that doctor for people like her, people like me. You're going to be incredible at it. If I can finish school while raising a baby on my own. You will, he said, with so much certainty it almost made me believe him. You're the most determined person I've ever met. You'll figure it out. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But then my body started betraying me in ways I couldn't ignore. The nausea got worse. The exhaustion became debilitating.
I started having contractions at 4 months, too early, scary enough that I ended up in the emergency room at 2 in the morning. They managed to stop them, sent me home with strict orders to reduce stress and get more rest. I laughed at that, rest, as if that was an option. Julian found out because I missed one of our regular library meetings. He showed up at my dorm at 7 in the morning with coffee and concern written all over his face. "I'm fine," I said, which was obviously a lie since I was still in bed in the middle of the day. "You're not fine. What happened?" I told him, watched his expression shift from concern to something that looked almost like anger, but not at me, at the situation, at the unfairness of it all. You can't keep working 2 jobs while pregnant. It's too much. I need the money. I gave you money. That's not my money. That's payment for a job. I can't just live off your charity. It's not charity if you've earned it. He sat down on the edge of my bed, which should have felt intrusive, but somehow didn't. What if I offered you another job, something easier, something you could do from your dorm? Doing what? Research assistant for my project. You're pre-med, you understand medical terminology. I need someone to help me compile data, review medical journals, analyze case studies. 20 hours a week, your own schedule, $40 an hour. That's $800 a week, more than enough to quit both your other jobs. I did the math in my head. That was more money than I'd ever made. Real money, life-changing money. Why would you do this? Because I need the help, and because you need a break. He said it so simply, like it was obvious. Let me help you, Kendra, please. I should have questioned it, should have wondered about his motives, but I was so tired, so scared, so completely out of options. And when someone throws you a lifeline, sometimes you just grab it and ask questions later. "Okay," I said. "I'll do it."
His smile was genuine, reaching his eyes for the first time since I'd met him. "Good. Take today off. Rest. I'll send over the materials tomorrow." He left, and I lay back down, one hand on my growing belly, and thought about how strange life was. 6 months ago, I had a best friend and no money. Now I had money and no best friend. I had a future that terrified me, and a millionaire who seemed to actually care whether I lived or died. And I still had no idea what I was doing. But for the first time in months, I had hope. And sometimes that's enough to keep you going. Working for Julian changed everything. The research was fascinating, challenging in ways that made my brain light up after months of survival mode. I'd spend hours in my dorm, laptop open, diving into medical journals about early disease detection, breakthrough diagnostic tools, case studies that read like mysteries waiting to be solved. Julian had been right. I was good at this. Really good. We fell into a rhythm. He'd send me materials, I'd analyze them. We'd meet twice a week to discuss findings. Those meetings started in coffee shops and ended up in his private lab, a massive space in the Castellano wing of the engineering building that looked like something from a science fiction movie. State-of-the-art equipment, prototypes of devices I didn't have clearance to fully understand, whiteboards covered in equations that made my head spin. But it wasn't just work. Somewhere along the way, without either of us meaning for it to happen, we became friends. Real friends. The kind who shared midnight snacks and stupid jokes and fears we wouldn't say out loud to anyone else. "What are you most afraid of?" he asked me one night. We were in his lab surrounded by the quiet hum of machines, eating takeout Chinese food that cost more than my old weekly grocery budget. "Failing," I said immediately, "dropping out, ending up exactly where I started, proving everyone right who said I couldn't make it." "You won't." "You don't know that." "I know you." He set down his chopsticks, looked at me with that intense focus that always made me feel seen. "You don't quit, even when quitting would be easier, even when everything is falling apart. That's not something you can fake. Either you have it or you don't. You have it." "What about you?" I turned the question back on him. "What are you afraid of?" He was quiet for a long time. "Becoming my father.
building an empire and losing everything that actually matters in the process. Waking up at 50 and realizing I'm rich and successful and completely alone. That won't happen. You don't know that. I know you. I echoed his words back to him, and he smiled, soft and real. You care too much to end up alone. It's actually kind of annoying how much you care. Is it? Definitely. Normal billionaire heirs don't bring their research assistants expensive food and ask about their feelings. You're terrible at being rich. He laughed, and the sound filled the lab, and I realized with a jolt that I was happy. Despite everything. Despite the pregnancy and the loss of Maya and the constant uncertainty of my future. In this moment, I was happy. That's when things got complicated. I was 6 months pregnant when I felt it shift. The way Julian looked at me, the way I caught myself looking at him, we'd gotten too close, crossed some invisible line from professional to personal to something I didn't have a name for. It scared me. I was pregnant with another man's child, broke despite his help, barely keeping my head above water. I had no business developing feelings for someone who existed in a completely different stratosphere. But feelings don't care about logic. They just exist, inconvenient and persistent and impossible to ignore. One night, working late in the lab, I stood up too fast and got dizzy. Julian caught me before I fell, his hands on my arms, steadying me. We were close enough that I could feel his breath, close enough to see gold flecks in his gray eyes that I'd never noticed before. Careful, he said softly. I'm okay. But neither of us moved. The moment stretched taut and fragile, and I could see him fighting the same battle I was. Then the baby kicked hard enough that I gasped, and the moment broke. He stepped back, ran a hand through his hair. You should go home. Get some rest. Julian, please. His voice was rough. Just go. I went, and I lay awake all night, hand on my belly, wondering what the hell I was doing. Wondering if it was possible to fall for someone when your life was this messy. Wondering if he was falling too, or if I was projecting hope onto simple kindness.
I got my answer a week later. Julian showed up at my dorm at midnight, which wasn't unusual. We kept strange hours. What was unusual was the look on his face. Desperate, determined, terrified. I need to say something, and I need you to let me finish before you respond. I nodded, heart pounding. I'm in love with you. The words came out rushed, like he'd been holding them back for too long. I know the timing is terrible. I know you're pregnant and overwhelmed, and the last thing you need is me complicating your life further. I know I'm probably taking advantage of our professional relationship, and this is wildly inappropriate, but I can't keep pretending I don't feel this way. I think about you constantly. I worry about you. I want to be there for you, not as your employer or your friend, but as someone who loves you. And I know you might not feel the same way. I know I might be destroying what we have by saying this, but I'd rather be honest and face rejection than spend another night lying to both of us. He stopped, breathing hard, waiting. I should have been careful. Should have protected myself, my baby, my fragile stability. Should have remembered every lesson life had taught me about depending on people. But I was tired of being careful, tired of protecting myself from everything, including happiness. I love you too, I said, and watched his expression transform from fear to hope to joy, so pure it hurt to look at. I've been trying not to, trying to convince myself it's just gratitude or hormones or desperation, but it's not. It's love, and it terrifies me. Me too, he said, and then he was kissing me, gentle and careful, like I was something precious, like I mattered. We spent that night talking about us, about the future, about all the complicated logistics of building something real in the middle of such chaos. He didn't care that I was pregnant with someone else's child, didn't care about the differences in our backgrounds. He just wanted me. All of me, mess and all. I want to be there for everything, the birth,
The late nights, the fear and joy and exhaustion. I want to be this baby's father if you'll let me. Not biologically, but in every way that actually matters. I cried. Happy tears, overwhelmed tears, grateful tears. Are you sure? This is a lot. You don't owe me anything. I'm not doing this out of obligation. I'm doing it because I want to. Because you and this baby are becoming my family, if you'll have me. We'll have you. God, yes, we'll have you. But of course, nothing could ever be that simple. Because 3 weeks later, Maya showed up at my dorm again. And this time, she wasn't alone. She brought Marcus, the father, the man who'd abandoned me the second things got difficult. He looked different than I remembered. Guilty, ashamed, desperate. "Kendra, please," Maya said, and she looked rough. No makeup, no expensive clothes, just exhaustion and regret. "Hear us out, please." I should have slammed the door, should have called Julian, but some masochistic part of me needed to know what they could possibly say that would justify this ambush. "You have 5 minutes." Marcus spoke first. "I'm sorry. For everything. For running, for blocking you, for being a coward. I was scared, and I handled it in the worst possible way." "Okay, is that it?" "No." He took a breath. "I want to be involved. I want to be a father to our child. I've spent the last few months thinking about what I did, what I gave up, and I can't live with myself if I don't at least try to make it right." Maya jumped in. "And I know what I did was unforgivable. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I'm trying to do better. I'm in therapy, I'm working on myself. And when Marcus reached out to me, trying to find you, I realized I could either keep running from my mistakes or face them. So here we are, facing them." I looked between them, two people who'd hurt me in profound ways, now asking for redemption I had no obligation to give. And in the background of my mind, I thought about Julian, about the life we were building, about the future we'd planned. You don't get to just show up and claim parenthood because it's convenient now. Where were you when I was terrified? When I was choosing between food and doctor's appointments? When I was completely alone? I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making up for that if you let me. "And you," I turned to Maya. "You tried to destroy my life to save your own. Why would I ever trust you again?" "You shouldn't," she said simply. "Trust has to be earned. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to prove I can be better. That's all." I wanted to say no, wanted to protect the perfect life I was building with Julian from the complications these two represented. But then I felt the baby kick, and I thought about what kind of person I wanted to be. What kind of mother? "I'll think about it, but I'm not promising anything. And if either of you hurt me or this baby again, you're done. Permanently." They nodded, thanked me, left. And I called Julian immediately, told him everything.
"What do you want to do?" he asked, and I loved that he didn't tell me what to think, just asked what I wanted. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to say no, keep them out, protect us. But part of me thinks, what if they really have changed? What if I'm depriving my child of a relationship with their biological father out of spite? Whatever you decide, I'm with you, always." And that simple promise meant more than any grand gesture ever could. The decision to let Marcus back into my life wasn't dramatic or immediate. It was slow, cautious, built on a foundation of supervised meetings and careful boundaries. He'd show up to doctor's appointments, sit in the waiting room unless I explicitly invited him in, which I rarely did at first. He'd ask about my health, the baby's development, what I needed. Never pushing, never demanding rights he'd forfeited. Julian was there through all of it, steady as gravity. He'd hold my hand during ultrasounds, argue with doctors who dismissed my concerns, help me build the nursery in my small dorm room that the university had finally agreed to let me keep. He bought books on parenting, read them cover to cover, asked questions about things like feeding schedules and sleep training, like his life depended on getting it right. You know you don't have to do all this, I told him one afternoon. We were assembling a crib that came with instructions in 3 languages, none of which seemed to match the actual parts. I'll understand if this is too much. He looked at me like I'd said something ridiculous. Kendra, this baby is already mine. Maybe not genetically, but in every way that counts. I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me. Promise? Promise. Maya's redemption was harder to watch. She'd lost everything. Her family had cut her off completely. She was living in a tiny apartment, working at a grocery store, trying to piece together a life from the rubble of her choices. She'd reach out occasionally, asking how I was doing, never pushing for more than I was willing to give. I started responding. Short messages at first, then longer ones. I wasn't ready to forgive her, but I was willing to acknowledge that people could grow, that mistakes didn't have to be permanent. She showed up at the hospital the night I went into labor. I didn't call her. Marcus must have told her. I was furious at first, ready to have her removed. But then another contraction hit, so intense I couldn't breathe, and she was there, holding my hand, coaching me through it like we'd done this together 100 times before. I don't forgive you, I gasped between contractions. She said, and she was crying. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm so proud of you. You're the strongest person I ever known. Julian was on my other side, Marcus in the waiting room at my request. Labor was brutal, longer than the doctors expected, complicated by stress and my age and the months of poor nutrition before Julian had come into my life. 36 hours of pain and fear and exhaustion, but when they finally placed my daughter in my arms, all of that vanished. She was perfect. 7 pounds, 2 ounces of perfect. Dark hair, my nose, eyes that hadn't decided on a color yet. She looked up at me like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment, like she knew me, like she trusted me completely. Hi, baby girl. I'm your mom, and I've got you, always. Julian was next to me, looking at my daughter with such wonder that it broke something open in my chest. Can I hold her? I handed her over carefully, watched him cradle her like she was made of glass. He was a natural, confident in a way I wasn't yet. She settled against him immediately, stopped fussing, just stared up at him with those unfocused newborn eyes. Hey there, little one. I'm Julian. I'm going to help take care of you, teach you things, probably embarrass you when you're older, but I'll always love you. That's a promise. Marcus came in after, held his daughter for the first time, and the guilt and love on his face was so raw I had to look away. Thank you, he said to me, for giving me this chance. I won't waste it. We'll see, I said, because trust still needed to be earned. Maya visited briefly, brought flowers, didn't ask to hold the baby, just told me she was beautiful and left before overstaying. Small steps, that's all we could manage. The first few months were chaos. Beautiful, exhausting chaos. Night feedings and diaper changes and trying to balance schoolwork with a newborn. I convinced the university to let me take a reduced course load, spread my remaining classes over 2 years instead of 1. Julian hired a part-time nanny to help when I had classes or was too exhausted to function. Marcus showed up every Sunday, spent the afternoon helping with whatever needed doing. Laundry, cleaning, grocery shopping, never asking for anything except the chance to be useful. Maya sent gifts, practical things, diapers, wipes, clothing in the right sizes. She never visited without asking first, never pushing for more than I was willing to give. Slowly, carefully, we started rebuilding something that resembled friendship. It wasn't what we had before, it might never be, but it was honest, and honesty was worth more than easy forgiveness. When my daughter was 6 months old, Julian asked me to marry him. We were in his apartment, which had slowly become our apartment. My things mixed with his, my daughter's toys scattered across his expensive rugs. He got down on one knee while I was wearing sweatpants and had spit up on my shoulder, and he said, I love you. I love our daughter. I want to build a life with you legally, officially. I want to adopt her. Give her my name if you'll let me. I want to be your husband and her father. Will you marry me?
I said yes. Of course I said yes. The wedding was small. My mother flew in, crying happy tears through the entire ceremony. A few close friends from school. Marcus was there because he was part of our complicated family now. He'd never be my daughter's primary father, but he was present, reliable, earning his place one day at a time. Maya was invited too. She sat in the back, cried quietly, and left without making a scene. I appreciated that, the restraint it must have taken. Julian adopted my daughter legally 6 months later. Her birth certificate was amended to list him as her father. He cried when the judge finalized it, held her close, whispered promises I couldn't hear but knew he'd keep. Marcus didn't fight it. She's his daughter, he told me, in all the ways that matter. I'm just grateful you let me be part of her life at all. I graduated from Richardson University 2 years after becoming a mother, walked across that stage with my daughter in the audience, held by her father, surrounded by family that looked nothing like I'd expected but was mine nonetheless. Top of my class, acceptance letters to multiple medical schools, a future that once seemed impossible suddenly sprawling out before me like an open road. Maya was in the audience too. She'd gotten a job at a pharmaceutical company, working her way up from the bottom. She'd never go to medical school, never become the doctor she dreamed of being, but she'd found purpose in other ways. And she'd never stopped trying to make amends. After the ceremony, she approached me carefully. "Congratulations, Kendra. You did it." "We all did," I said, and I meant it. "Everyone here helped me get to this point, including you. I don't deserve that generosity." "Probably not, but I'm giving it anyway." I smiled. People grow. I've learned that. Some people just need a harder lesson than others. She hugged me then, and I let her, and it felt like closing a chapter. Not a happy ending exactly, but an honest one. That night, Julian and I lay in bed, our daughter asleep in the next room, and he said, "Do you ever think about how different your life would be if none of this had happened? If Maya hadn't betrayed you, if I hadn't investigated, if we'd never met?" "Every day," I admitted. "But I can't regret it, any of it, because it led me here, to you, to her, to this life I never thought I deserved." "You deserve everything," he said fiercely, "and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know that." 5 years later, I'm in my residency at a top hospital. My daughter is in kindergarten, smart and funny and kind. She knows Marcus as Uncle Marcus, sees him twice a month, has a relationship with him that's healthy and boundaried. Maya is part of our extended circle, invited to birthdays and holidays, always respectful of the space between us. Julian's company went public, his medical devices saving lives around the world just like he dreamed. And me? I'm becoming the doctor I always wanted to be. For my aunt, for people like me who need someone who understands. For my daughter, so she knows that strength isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Some nights, when I'm exhausted from rounds and my daughter crawls into bed between Julian and me, I think about that girl in the Target bathroom, terrified and alone, holding a positive pregnancy test. I wish I could tell her it's going to be okay, better than okay, that the worst moments of her life will lead to the best, that betrayal will teach her who to trust, that desperation will show her who she really is. I wish I could tell her to hold on, just a little longer, because the life waiting for her on the other side of all that fear, it's worth every painful step it took to get there. And I'd know, because I'm living it. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment letting me know where you're watching from. And remember, no matter how impossible your situation feels right now, you're stronger than you know. Your story isn't over yet.